Yeah.
Right. Well, I was going to start this meeting by wishing everybody a happy new year to the first council committee meeting of the year, only to discuss Councillor Shoreby, which and our two members of the public a happy new year. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. We've had an apology from Councillor Wade, and I think, bearing in mind recent hospitalisation of Councillor Davis, we weren't really expecting. I think we'll treat his Christmas Day email about being in hospital having his operation as a business. So the next item is the representation of interested parties. This regards various felled trees, and I see both Nick and Tony were with us. I don't know which of you gentlemen is going to start. I'm happy to hear from both of you, and I'll leave you to sort it out.
Yeah, it's always easier to hear. I mean, yes.
The owl can hear you and pick you up.
Oh, the out.
Yeah.
Well, this is.
Yeah, go close to the centre.
Okay, well, I mean, we want to be near the centre, yeah?
Yeah.
Near the out. Oh, I see, that sees things as well as his.
Yes.
Okay.
It's all seen.
So I came to speak to you, I think, on the 26th of the 11th. Very soon after, some trees have been felled down at the Costot Meadows building site. And I was concerned as to whether the right rigmarole had been gone through as far as laws and so on. And I came actually to speak to the council in the morning and really to find out whose land was involved. And found that the council had no more clue than anybody else. But it was suggested that I come to the planning meeting that evening and talk to you, which I did. Since then, I was sent a copy of a tree survey by a well-wisher at Staunch Titchmarsh, and Charles Clay, who lives in Arundel, who is the ex-principal landscape architect in Peterborough, who's there for 20 years, so knows as much about this as we could. And we went down there to have a look. He thought that the trees had been treated quite well. You know, I mean, although they've been felled, the work had been done quite well. He then put me onto a much better tree plan, which is this one on the board here. And he, having looked at that, and gone down to see the site, and you may have the emails, I'm not sure what they sent. I had a look at the Vistry planning application. It shows all the trees and half the hedgerow within the developer's ownership. The arboricultural assessment has been carried out in accordance with the British standard and designates all the ash trees along the boundary in a low C1 or C2 category. Interestingly, the assessment does describe the hedgerow, which is now all but missing, as Group P Hawthorn Elder Rose. So I think there is a good case to request the planning authority to get the developers to put new planting in the felled trees and the hedge. And that's what he said. He didn't mind me quoting it to you. He also made a very good practical point that the developers will be planting down there in that area anyway. It shouldn't be a big stretch to extend it to the hedge. So that's really all the information I have. That's
Very helpful. Does anybody have any questions at this stage?
No questions, just to thank you for
the
visions.
well, thank you. I walk there every day. I mean, I've got over it a little bit now, but it's a huge shock. It's true. And you have some suggestions, didn't you?
Yeah. I'd see more shock. I can't see them anymore. The houses in there. But it seemed that it was a good opportunity for us to maybe get NNC planning enforcement on site to have a look at their thoughts. Clearly, whether the fence lines will be moved or not, but this may or may not be part of the planning application land. And there were loads and loads of different planning bits added to the whole thing. Promises about freedom to biodiversity, etc. And it would be a good opportunity, I think, for us to touch base with them about how this is handled. But that's the main thing.
Yeah. So,
NNC on site.
yeah, and you mentioned the tree officer as well, you invite her. Yeah, I'd be happy to come along if there is a meeting down there.
So are we able to make a decision to do that?
See them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can take with 12% simultaneously. I have to say that past experience of taking anything this is difficult because unless it's something they literally have to do, they don't seem very keen on getting involved in anything. But if you don't try, it's so we'll do that. It would be worth being 3 unitary councillors as well. So
Two. Yeah, that's two.
we see slightly of the pace.
Well, the news is we've been broken state.
Oh, you can let me know who you've lost in due course.
So yeah,
Hey, you're also.
I don't have anything particular to say. I just came along because I have an interest as Parish Park Warden and just want me.
Yeah. I mean, to look at it from the perspective of, well, what do you think the impact is in terms of the amenity? Do you think it's, as it were, impacted it adversely?
Picture.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's much nicer with trees and shrubs growing on the side and the hedge that's been massively trimmed.
There's possibly a broader issue. A lot of the original plans for the site had the path running on the route it's on, then going straight onto the moment it kinks. And so I don't know whether history actually had plans to straighten it. Put new bridges in or what, it's all very unclear. But that's plans for the route. A very strong path element and with paths linking down around the drainage pond, which will pave the bit all over.
In which case, perhaps we should broaden this, because there's also a person responsible for footpaths as well. We should bring them to it.
And see here one as well.
I was thinking of the NNC.
They work. Is it working with mystery involved as well? You can get a site visit with them and the family enforcement team.
In which case, to be responsible for the situation, so it seems
So-
reasonable to try and engage with.
I mean, it appears the work was done by the mystery landowner, Richardson, whoever it is. So, I mean, the contractor down there had said there'd been some humming and hawing as to whose trees they were. And yeah, it sounded like history had washed their hands.
But I struggle to see what benefit to the landowner there is in doing any of these works, because I think they retain them, as far as I'm aware.
I mean, my first thought was that maybe they were tidying up the view from the bigger houses at the bottom of the development. Like to put in suburban type trees there, just to make it tidy. But I suspect that's a conspiracy theory. I think probably it's actually just that somebody felt they needed felling. I mean, I must say from the amenity point of view, obviously this time of year you can't really tell very much. I mean, it all looks the same as it used to, but once you start getting the greenery back, clearly there was quite a high hedge there, quite a high tree line, which is completely disappeared and won't be back for another 14 years or something, 30, 40 years perhaps. And also from the nature point of view, I mean, that, you know, a lot of birds use the edge of town. They feed in gardens and then move out, you know, nest and so on. And I think there's, yeah, I think that's really been very harmful to the wildlife. And the more we can do to restore the hedge or get people to restore the hedge, the better.
So just on that basis, the nature recovery group that Tony's have been involved in, they're spending a lot of time looking at mowing on corridors around and connecting corridors, and NNC's biodiversity strategy does exactly the same thing. That's the corridor.
Yeah.
It's got moving
Yeah.
a large area of the urban to everything that is.
Just one other thing, I'm not sure if it's completely relevant to this, but the permissive path that goes through the gross sustainability land, so comes back along the board. Did that used to continue down to the edge of the wood? When it was first moved?
My understanding, if you look at all the maps, is there was a path. I'm not sure that missing.
Right, because there was actually a style. So you could actually walk from, you know, right the way around that part of the river. And that's been fenced off now. So it's fenced off. And I mentioned it. He said, oh, there was, but it lapsed 7 years ago. If you don't know much about it, then obviously.
Now, I know the permissive path around to from our board to firing source.
Yeah.
2019.
Yes.
Um,
I'm pretty sure it was along the river. Along there. I mean, certainly it was used.
Yeah, I think part of it was
It certainly is now anymore.
You could check on historic 6-inch map,
Yes.
see if it's not bookmarked. I could check.
Thank you for volunteering.
The other thing is, can the developers change the line of the public footpath, the King's Highway?
Well, sure, it's not,
No.
they don't have permission to do that.
Yeah.
Just to know if they have, I mean, they're clearly,
Reroute it.
so it might be worth investigating that.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the, they're both members of the Open Spaces Society.
There is a process to go through.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to divert it, it's quite winded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate Ashton, she loves these sort of things. The shorter the better.
Right. Well, thank you for going back to us to
Thank you.
update us. As a result, taking on board a few things to do. That's on the agenda for next time. Report back anything we discussed in the meantime.
If there's a meeting,
Yes.
please do attend.
I'll come along to-
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Interesting to see how many tree order things are actually in the running order of tonight's agenda.
Yeah.
Sure, it's obviously a big issue, isn't it?
It's always just.
Did it go this morning?
Which one? The one I'm talking about, this is. So where's the board?
Oh, shouldn't it?
Okay, so.
Yes, yes, all one word,
Yes.
all one word. No,
But certainly, this is something that was at start there, which is gone now. And,
Yeah, that's right.
but people were looking.
Yeah.
Traditionally,
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah, I
Okay, right, thank you so much. Right, thank you. Moving on, the next item is declaration of this. We need to disclose of pecuniary interests or other interests. No. Minutes of the meeting that was held on the 26th of November, attended by myself, Councillor Chester, Councillor Clark, Councillor Fuller, and Councillor Shura, so we got to us as well. These were circulated. Somebody like to propose that they're happy with them? Councillor Chester, I think, and Councillor Shura, rapidly on them. All those in favour?
Lisa, I just sent you the list of site managers who
Okay,
gather a meeting together.
thank you, yeah.
Right. So that takes us on to the planning applications. Not exactly plentiful, not too surprising in this time of year. First one, 2 Stoke Hill, application for listed building consent in respect of certain internal ground floor alterations. Now, there is a plan which I think is either described as site plan or location, which I think so, which in fact isn't the site, it's actually a floor plan. I will illustrate. Whilst that's coming up, I did my usual report, and in essence, all we're talking about is the half removal of the internal wall. The applicant says that's in order to create a somewhat larger space. I don't think that's all.
Floor plans proposed?
What's that? It's a digital one. Yeah, it is.
No, turn it round, so it's really irritating.
Is it the 3 dots?
Yeah.
No, it's not on there. Is it on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
That, right. So, here is the existing plan. It's almost a question of spot the difference, you know, there's things to put in the papers for kids. It's that wall there, which as existing, in rather in a way, comes to the chest, goes the whole way across, and the proposal is literally to take out this bit, which includes a door with a glazed panel. If the applicant's heritage impacts is accurate, it would suggest that there is nothing of any historic quality to that internal wall, which is in these terms. And assuming that that's right, it doesn't seem to be much to be excited about. The only comment I saw on the portal was from NNC Archaeology, observing that they didn't need to make any comments, which may say quite a bit to us. It's a property where I note there have been 3 permissions done for various bits of work to it. For example, an additional window, removal of roof light, upgrading a damp course, and replacing classroom skirting boards and putting in a new vent extraction to service the ensuite bathroom. So there have been a number of internal works for which planning permission has been granted in the past. To say this looks like one of those cases where unless the conservation officer has a problem because there is something intrinsically valuable about the wall and the door, which seems extremely improbable. I can't see the conservation officer having a problem. Which is the usual comment that
Yeah.
in default of the concerns being expressed by the conservation officer, we would have to.
No, okay.
Yeah. The second application is slightly bizarre. As with most of these things, there are literally two documents on the portal. One is the application and one is a site. And the application tells us very little more than is on the document in front of us in terms of the agenda. It looks as if it might be a single tree. Actually reading the application, I think it's within a group of trees. Where it's talking about removing some lower branches. It would appear to be a matter of tree husbandry, and not trees that are subject to TPOs, but to trees which are simply located within the conservation. And there is said to be TG1. The curious thing appears to be that the tree itself seems to be located in a property in West Street. The application is made by the owner of 5 Auction News. I speculate, but it's simply not made clear in the paper, that actually what's happened here is that there are low branches that are actually extending out of the West Street property and into the Auction News property, which would make a certain amount of sense. Which would have been much simpler if we seen some photographs illustrating the point. There are none. The applicant's application indicates that James Rowland would be involved in it, so we know it's somebody who knows what they're doing. But really, there's little information on there to enable us to understand it. Now, you might argue that technically, from a planning perspective, people can put in planning applications in relation to land that isn't owned by. There's a box to tick on the form if you're not the landowner. The relevant box is ticked on. Check. Whether we make any observations around that issue, I leave to others. Have a meeting. And I'm minded to say that as it appears that the tree husbandry, you probably want to express a view other than perhaps a certain amount of sadness that there is information with it. That's for sure.
Well, it goes back to the discussion we had pre-meeting, Chair, and that is to point out the legal issue, which you reminded me about, that if the tree is on somebody else's land, anything that's taken off the tree is returned to them.
Yeah. In other words, if somebody on a tree projects into your property, you do have the right to trim it back to your boundary. But the timber that is there belongs to the owner of it. Return the timber to them, presumably not chucking it over the hedge in case it lands in something. That's the other side. Criminal damage to the glass house or something. But from the perspective of what the works actually are, it's a matter for us to object.
No.
As I say, whether we make any comment about the lack of information given the circumstances, or we just think that we've got a view on that.
I don't think there's any reason to object. We could maybe point out the fact that the application is, has its shortcomings that
Thanks, Steve. That's suggested.
We spoke to do one of our, the tree. So, I don't know. It might be that it's, because it's in a conservation area, what they propose to do to somebody else's tree would be significant. Would that not be the case?
Right. I mean, as I say, I'm sure the tree officers look at it because it's an application of
Yeah.
conservation area.
That's.
To that extent, we certainly say usual policy of
Exactly.
subject to this view.
Yeah.
I don't get the impression anybody is that exercise. Councillor Sure for trying to use Google Earth to see if they do it.
So it's got it down here.
It's, it's,
We want to propose.
It's really clear on that. I think it just goes to the usual comment.
Yeah.
To extend.
Yeah.
To be honest, when we do expand on it, we get no response, even when we say there's no information, we, you know, we don't ever get a response, so.
Yeah, that's really disappointing.
Right,
On the basis that we're going to move on, I think we'll just abandon the attempt to use Google Earth. There are three other matters on the agenda. They aren't matters for which I've written anything. They really are there principally for information. Two of them to do with simply the discharge conditions relating to two different areas. There is an application that is for a certificate of lawfulness. We do sometimes look at that and make a comment. I didn't bother to look at it because I started by looking at the words urgent replacement of upstairs bedroom window. That's a comment.
I'm at a disposable even. Really interested about. I have butts for that. I've just been looking at it thinking, oh, yes. So it's the one on the cross road.
But as we're not going to comment on it, we'll note it. It's a matter of form. But as we're not really going to debate it, then we need to worry about it. We're certainly not proposing to ask you to leave, or I'm aware that we're going to anywhere very shortly.
Not that.
But as I say, looking at the information that's in our agenda about frequency case, it just didn't seem appropriate to worry about it. It talks about urgent replacement of wood, so just leave it to the council. Deal with as they see fit. That being, in terms of the planning approach, which is the next thing on the agenda, you will note that planning permission has been granted for the removal of that block of garages in Springfield Road, with the construction of some properties in their stead. Perhaps more significantly, and it does pop up later in the agenda, permission has been granted for the land to the rear of the cemetery, 50 properties. And then you'll see that 2 Old School Avenue, where we said that if the tree officer believed the work was necessary in proportion with it, we obviously didn't think it was because that application has been refused. And 8 West Street, which is that new development behind what we the proposed new extractor flue, and the tree preservation order at Herne Road. Now, we did put on the agenda, because this issue has been raised by other councillors, is whether, and if so, what we might do in relation to the fact that despite not only our objections, but many objections from others within the parish, NLC has seen fit to grant the application for the land of Stoke Hill. The question that's being asked of us really is, do we take any steps in connection with that. And just to add to, stroke complicate the matter, it has been suggested that not only have they got that permission, but that very shortly thereafter they can try to breach conditions attached to that. Lucia, have you got any more details about the nature of those breaches?
I think I sent you the reply,
I think
didn't
you
I?
did.
I've not, they've not clarified anything further to go back to them. But obviously that's a loophole that they don't class that as actual work.
Yeah. Would suggest that there's not much more we can do about that in the circumstances. So. What's it?
Well, I think we're going to get a few more of these over the next few years anyway. My view has always been, okay, it's happening. So let's just make sure that not doing the others do the best job they can that suits the best interest of the town. So we have to, it's one of those things where you say, forget fighting it, it's happening. So let's think a positive outcome for the town. Doing it again. So yes, pick them up on things like what they're trying to do. And I know they've got no excuse, but we keep an eye on it. And who are the builders?
Really wasn't there, isn't it?
Well, they did that as a builders.
I really wouldn't be able to express a view, and even if I could, I'd probably be rubbish in a forum such as this.
I mean, I always feel that we should establish the best relationship we can, bearing in mind the try to history. And that's the view that I have. But it's for us to try and get the best outcome we can. That's my view.
I speak as an interested party, I suppose, having lived with the building site for 2.5 years. And as a resident, I and others have felt that the planning enforcement team has just chief of 4 minutes. So actually, the only thing we can do as a council is act as a conduit between planning authority and residents and try and bring a bit more help to get the planning enforcement team to at least follow it. Because I know on a number of nearby estates, in particular, every single planning enforcement request from the original planning commission has been broken. And nothing has been reported, no response. So you just, as a resident, you feel you're on your own. So if there's any way we can improve relationships between the town and the planning enforcement team, which I don't think minutes that's the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we can do is actually help raise those issues.
We'll keep on the toes.
The question then is, do we go out in the sense of actively looking at watching, in the sense of do we use our social media to say to people, if you spot something which you believe to amount to a breach of planning, please report it to us. Does that be provocative as regards our relationship with the developer? Because it almost looks then as if we're touting for people to come to us.
The problem is the expectation that we can do something.
Yeah.
And what we can do is send an email, send an email boxes. So
Yeah, it depends how you communicate, to be honest. I think the idea of that is a good idea, but we have to be careful about how we communicate it both to the town and to the builders. We're not trying to say that, but we're trying to protect the town. So I think there's a genuine opportunity here to do something where we make residents feel that they can say something, but the point, we accept, we take the responsibility of the stuff. So what happens after that is, in some respects, very relevant because we're there lasting up to more. But we as a town, townspeople, but at the same time, we need to communicate this before we do it with the builders to let them know this is what we're going to do. because there's serious concerns from the town about this development.
I suppose one thing we could do is use the forthcoming article sooner rather than later to publicise the fact that the mission within it to simply mention that the council will, as it does on all developments, keep an eye on compliance with planning conditions. And we don't necessarily need to say much more. Somebody who then thinks there's been a breach might go and report it to us, having read. And then it kind of works in that way, without us actively going out there saying,
Yes, and
yes,
also,
do report it.
yes, and also,
Just, as you say, a site something right. Of course, the other side of this is that part of this whole exercise did involve the transfer around. I suspect may possibly have been on the agenda of the previous meeting. And if it is, then I don't want to drink some estates problems. But of course, it is just vitally important to make sure that that happens as sooner rather than later. Seems to me. Personally,
with the main, with our meeting, town meeting, in the next, say, May times, it's getting close. I wonder if there's an opportunity for the chair of the planning, to just talk about planning and how you feel, planning under our new government is going to have an impact on if you could commit like a looking glass, isn't it? But also advice to the town on what they can do basically. But how can we shape that? I think it needs to be part of the agenda.
well, we can certainly make it part of that agenda, as you say, for the town meeting. That's still some way off.
It is.
I suspect. We might want to put the, but yes, we could put something onto the agenda of the meeting as well. So get involved in that. Councillor Shearer?
I think we're through the rock and hard place on this similar situations in that it's quite clear that the town council planning committee opposed this application more than once. It's quite clear that our concerns, multiple concerns, are just simply ignored by NC. It seems clear to me that probably the majority of residents also are not in favour of separate. But, as has already been pointed out, I think we've got to try and be positive in working with the developer to try and ensure that there's a positive outcome as can be. So I think a lot of it is around communication. Maybe that we do need, as has been suggested, to think about communicate this through our various channels and maybe future town meetings. But I also do wonder whether or not we should have some form of discussion either with our NSC representatives to ensure that, getting to the observation made by Councillor Clark, that developers understand that they can't just essentially ignore the provisions that have been set. This has already gone off to a bad start. I think it's gone off to a bad start both from the developers point of view and actually from the NSC response, which is basically just simply saying, oh, well, get on and do a bit, this is it, we're not going to do it. When it's quite clear that I think it's quite clear to everybody that they've actually already infringed the requirements. So I just wonder whether or not we do need to have a charm offensive on two fronts, both with the town in communicating views, but also possibly with NSC representatives, just to ensure that yet again, the developers, are held systems.
Yeah,
That's the
I
point.
do agree with that. But, I was at, I'm now at the National Assembly. Then, volunteered, shut down the flag to go do this. But interestingly enough, I was at my first general meeting, where it was. There's a good guy on the planet, actually, Chuck Peter Hanson in West Yorkshire, who's the main man for planning. That side. But they were talking about this. The new planning, come out here. But apparently, neighbourhood plans, we've already mentioned it in the past. Once the neighbourhood plan is made, it becomes part of the local. And the local plan is what NNC have to stick to, don't they? But they didn't in this case. Yeah. But perhaps, I mean, you've got that platform of the neighbourhood.
Well, yes, we have a meeting next week with that to discuss potential update, sort of review of it, taking it to 2040.
I think it's 2040. Protection for animals.
Well, that in a sense links to the next bit on our agenda because it's a business with Lee Barrows, because we've run up against a brick wall in terms of trying to engage with NTC. This has never even talked to us. For whatever reason, nobody in the plan community wants to engage. So we did approach Lee Barrow. We asked initially if he could come to one of our meetings. That's clearly problematic. It's Tuesday. He's likely to be down in London during the week. And so I think we want to continue to pursue that. And I think the answer is to go to him and ask him to suggest some dates, times, when he might be able to meet with representatives. And we just have to see if we can make that work.
I've already sent the email, and even suggested that maybe we could arrange a meeting when he has his next surgery in Alderwood, but not respond.
Yeah. Well, we're in his hands at the moment. If he doesn't have back to us, we'll change that. That's not.
When did you send the email?
Straight after the last meeting.
Was it to his MP's email?
Yeah.
I'm possibly going to be meeting him next week.
Yeah.
And I'm possibly going to be meeting him at the end of the month. So, you know, here by then.
If you could let Ian know,
Yeah.
and then if we haven't said anything and you're able to, just give it a quick nudge, that might help. I guess the other thing is, two things are not entirely disconnected in terms of the wider picture. Councillor Harrison is relatively assiduous, attending all council meetings. Suppose there is always the prospect of inviting her to attend a planning meeting, even it's with us, where we could find some questions up and she could get some feedback if she's willing to help.
That's very good.
Well, if we could invite her to our next meeting, which will presumably be the
End of the month, isn't
oh,
it?
it's the end of the month. Well, if she can't make that, then the February. And let's just see if she's happy to engage with us in that. That actually effectively takes us through the penultimate item on the agenda as well, which was the update on the response review. So that simply takes us into another relevant matters for report. Mr. Chester, you sure? Mr. Fuller? Mr. Fuller? I have nothing either. Is it? No. In which case, 45 minutes rather than 30, but I'll declare the meeting closed. See you shortly.
I'm sure.
I'll-
Charlotte.